Please be. Well, Merry Christmas. I once knew a woman who grew up in Jerusalem, and she was once telling me a story, and she said, oh yeah, my brother had to drive all the way from where he lives to pick me up. He lives in this city called Bethlehem. It's like 15 minutes away, and I said, Julia, we've heard of Bethlehem. we know that city. We didn't know it was only a 15-minute drive from Jerusalem, but we have heard of Bethlehem. So tonight is the night. The light of God comes into the world. The darkness seems to be winning. And tonight is the night where we know it will not win. And the light of God comes and is victorious. I don't know what kind of traditions you had growing up for Christmas or which ones you continue to have. When I was a child, we would do Christmas at my grandparents' house with all my aunts and uncles and all my cousins. There'd be like 25 of us or maybe more, and everyone would bring all their presents on Christmas Eve, and we'd pile them all up around the tree. And you'd be so excited, I'd be like 8 years old, and all I wanted to do was figure out which of these were mine and how fast can I open them. But at first, we all had to sit down to a dinner, and we had to begin by thanking Grandma for making such an amazing meal. And then we would eat, and then you'd think, all right, now it's time to open presents. No! Even though my grandparents had a dishwasher, all the grandchildren had to wash all of the dishes. And I was always so confused. Why can't we just put it in the dishwasher? And then they're like, there's too many. And I'd start to argue, and finally they were like, just be quiet and wash the dishes or you don't get to open your presents. And it drove me crazy as a child, but now I'm so thankful that thing you want so desperately, and it's like, no. Other people have to cook, other people have to clean, you have to participate in that. And it was a great lesson, and it still would drive me nuts, even when I was older and I would be made to wash dishes, and I understood all the logic, but I just hated it. But today is that night where you're supposedly getting everything you want. When you watch these movies nowadays with Santa Claus and all that, usually something goes wrong, like Santa's sleigh breaks down, or, I don't know, someone catches Santa and he gets trapped. Something happens, and then some child who believes in Santa has to come and convince everyone else to believe in Santa. And then, all this stuff happens. And then at the end of the movie, the child gets what they always wanted. But it's like a skateboard. Or it's like a video game console, or some material thing that now just seems so ephemeral. It's there for that year, but then the next year you're probably like, oh, I don't really ride the skateboard anymore, And I'm glad that the world doesn't always work that way. Because for Christmas, for us as Christians, we gather and we see the light of Christ coming into our lives. And that gives us what we need. Whereas Santa kind of gives us what we might want. But I'm old enough now to know that sometimes I'm dumb and I want dumb things. Plus gifts, I love gifts, I like getting gifts, I love giving gifts. But they're also strange on this night. Because this night we celebrate the God who created the whole universe deciding to become human. And we're like, how do we celebrate that and honor this epic, momentous, life-changing, greatest event in human history? It's like, here are some socks. I'm sure we all need nice socks and we need to keep our feet warm, but it pales in comparison to the momentousness of what we celebrate today. And so please give each other socks if that's your gift, but also thank you for being here in church. And recognizing this day is so much bigger than, a skateboard or this or whatever you kind of want this year. And instead what God gives you is God's self. We are finite and God is infinite, and we can only know God where God has chosen to be revealed to us. Our brains are just too small. We can't comprehend the totality that is God. And so we can only know God where God has been revealed. And tonight is one of those epic times where God has been revealed to us. I would argue the first time is in God's creation. God created the universe and called it good. And when you read Genesis 1, you see that the earth was created very structured and very organized. Engineers would be very excited reading Genesis 1. This is very orderly. And then we look around at the world and it's very disordered. There's pain, there's suffering, there's ugliness, there's sorrow. And we look at what happened and it's like, well, we humans happened. We kind of messed it up a little bit, or messed it up a lot. The second big moment of God being revealed to us is in Moses on Mount Sinai, God making the covenant with God's people, God freeing God's people out of slavery, bringing them through the desert and into the promised land. God showed up, God intervened, and God revealed a lot of God's character to us in that Exodus story. And then the third time is tonight, when God chose to become human and be revealed to us in a new and different way, in a bolder revelation. C.S. Lewis said before he became a Christian, he was arguing with his friend J.R.R. Tolkien, who was trying to convince him to be a Christian. And C.S. Lewis said, I can no more know God than Hamlet can know Shakespeare. The character in the story cannot know the author of the story. There's a gap. And then when Lewis decided to become a Christian, he said that analogy still holds, but Hamlet can know Shakespeare if Shakespeare writes himself into the story. And today, himself into our story. And God showed up in a different way and in a different manner. And God chose to enter our story in a food trough. We like to call it a manger, but I think we only say manger at Christmas, and it kind of gets this romantic notion attached to it. It's a food trough. So God did not come to show us how to ascend to the tops of thrones. Instead, God descended and showed us who God is with, and that is the poor, the lowly, and those who have no place to lay their child except a dirty, smelly food trough. The key to that is to know that God showed up and showed up humbly, and when we grieve, when we mourn, when we go through really difficult times, when we're low, God is there. God has been through all of that and knows it intimately. And God is there. And so on this night where it feels like the darkness is growing, and that is a light that knows darkness. And so now we're going to do a little practice, or a little activity. I know it's difficult when the preacher gives you an assignment. Did you get a candle?
I'll
Go grab it.
Thank you.
Does everyone have a candle? I'm going to start lighting them. Now what I want you to do, as you have this light, is maybe to think about 2024. Think about a time that was kind of rough for you, when you felt like you were in darkness. And then look at this light and see that the light of Christ has come into this world. And as deep and dark as that moment might have felt and might still feel, this light represents that you are not alone, that the God who has gone through all of what you felt in that dark and lonely moment, God was with you and God is with you. So take a moment, look at the light, and know that God loves you, and so do we. Now please stand